is 30 minutes each, and I defy you to find any 3 seconds in which something isn't happening. These trucks may be huge, may be powerful, but the racing is absolutely fantastic. Championship leader Adam Lachko in the 55 Freightliner. Going around, and behind him is Norbert Kisch, the driver who has the flags all around the circuit with his name, either Norbert or Norby, and love signs and exclamation marks all over the flags on the motorway bridges on the way out of the capital city, Budapest, this morning. There is Ryan Smith in 88 with most of the Dayglow yellow parts on his truck. Had a few collisions, front end damage yesterday, and in fact, walking in through the paddock last night, you could hear great big lump hammers being applied. Almost every one of these trucks had some little bit of body damage, often just the rear mud flaps you can see over the rear wheels, but these trucks get so super close to each other. 1,000 horsepower, 5,000 Newton meters of torque. They're very quick, but there is an element called overspeeding. There's a maximum speed they're allowed to attain, and several drivers were being pinged for that yesterday, including Shane Brereton, a British driver making his debut, who really performed way beyond expectations and held down 4th place in the first race. But sadly for him, he then had 2 overspeeding offences against his name, and his penalty dropped him to 10th place. Number 15 there, Erwin Klein Nagelfort, Dutch driver in his Scania. Didn't have a lot of form and fortune yesterday. Maybe it'll come good for him today, but certainly, as we look at David Rosecki, teammate to Adam Lachko, the 2 Czech racers, looking forward next weekend to their home Grand Prix, the Czech Truck Grand Prix at Most. So this part of the season, after a 6-week break since the round at Slovakia Ring, 4 races there, suddenly the races are coming thick and fast for the remainder of the season. So just a chance for these trucks to get their sighters in as they prepare for the Superpole shootout, which will be for the top 10 of them. So time practice 2, it's only a 10-minute run, and they've already got 2.5 minutes off that clock. No flying laps as yet. It's a long way round for them to complete their flying lap. It looks as though Adam Lachko must have been one of the first ones out of the pit. He's sweeping round the 14th and final turn of this 4.381 kilometre circuit. Been with us more than 30 years now, and apparently the Hungaroring due for a massive refresh and refit next year. The circuit may close down after the Hungarian Grand Prix, and the building work will commence. What remains of the original circuit is, well, it's almost exactly as it was, bar the problem they had out of turn 3 when they had to get around a spring that kept creeping up and making the track wet and tricky. But what we still have is the incline, the gradient change, the constant sweep of corners, and the wonderful view across the valley, just out, as I say, from the capital city, Budapest. And it really is a great piece of tarmac to drive, very hard to race on, particularly if you're driving a great big truck. It doesn't leave them a lot of space, but the trucks really belied their sheer bulk. 5.3 tons they weigh, but yet they were racing them almost like hot hatches, almost like little saloons yesterday, trying to get up alongside. They push, they shunt, they shove, but by golly, do they race. So, waiting for the first flying lap to come in, Adam Lachko coming towards the end of his tour, waiting for him to slot one part. In fact, he's only part way around, he's halfway around the lap. I can now spot him in the far distance. Across the valley. There he is, turns 6 and 7. Now he goes out of my sight as I can no longer look across the valley. Pressing on, he's got pink times on the screens. That's good. That means he's fastest of all. But at this early stage, he's leading the pack around, which indeed he is, being chased by Norbert Kisch, the Hungarian star. They've both gone through the chicane. They're twisting through turns 8, 9. This is turn 9, flicks into 10. And then carries on around the corner. That's turn 11. It's a corner the drivers really have to watch. If they go out too far over the curbing, Norbert Kisch got it just right. They do get warned and have their fastest times taken away from them. Watch too, the third truck in that grouping, somewhat further back, not yet at turn 11, is number 1, which is Jochen Hahn, the reigning and 4-time European truck racing champion. But really, here at the Hungaroring, all eyes, not so much on Adam Lachko, but they're on the 24 truck, Norbert Kisch. Anyhow, let's see what the benchmark is. The fastest lap in yesterday's second race, 2-minute 19.7, 2-minute 18.9 for Kisch in the first race. But with no traffic around him, looks so those times will be matched and beaten. 2 minutes 18.268 for Adam Lachko. There is an example of what you can do on a clear lap. Immediately beaten, importantly beaten. The horns have already started sounding beneath my commentary box. Norbert Kisch is the man on the top of the tables. Now what can Jochen Hahn do? Reigning champion, number 1 on the side of Iveco. He slots in between them. Steffi Harm goes into third place behind Hahn. Antonio Albacete, a long time ago, a Ford Fiesta champion in Portugal and Spain, then a Formula Ford champion, then a National Touring Car champion, but he's been in trucks a while and he's got many titles to his name, but not quite on the ultimate pace yesterday. But he enjoyed some great battling. Here's Jose Rodriguez. He got, he was eventually just, he pulled out of the second race. He had a bit of clatter against the barriers. But it's still Kistran Hahn from Harm and Adam Lachko down in fourth place, but he's now starting to pick up the pace on his next lap. Here, there's his teammate, David Vasecki. And what we're doing, we're counting our way down to the end of this little session, and then we go to Superpole for a 10-minute break. Sorry, 5-minute break, and then the top 10 drivers from the qualifying session will go out to have a really quick-fire gun to see if they can take pole position. It's a 10-minute free practice session followed by the 10-minute Superpole. Norbert Kish, well, he's just cruising back in there. He thinks his time is enough to make sure he's in the top 10. Probably very wise. Save the tyres, save the brakes, save it for the Super 10. Superpole shootout for the top 10 runners. So he'll be cruising in, and in fact all of those behind him, down to Albacete in sixth place, all backing off and cruising their way in. Those behind who are still trying to make sure they stay in the top 10, gunning it around the circuit, and 17 slicing his way into. That's Shane Brereton, who was so impressive, running in fourth place in yesterday's first race. He doesn't really want to be in all that traffic if he's trying to set a time. Tucked in behind Antonio Albacete in the 23. Obviously the most distinctive trucks out there are the snout-nosed trucks, the Freightliners entered by Bulgaria International Racing System, Adam Lachko and David Vasecki. Number 30, Sasha Lentz, son of multiple truck racing champion Heinz Werner Lentz, champion right at the end of the 20th century, 97, 98 and 99. His father, Heinz Werner Lentz, you may well remember the name. Sasha's been racing at this level since 2013. Had a bit of a busy race yesterday, and sadly for him, he was gradually picked off in that second race and ended up back in 10th place. But he picked up a 5th place in the opening race, so the speed can be there, but the traffic got to him. And sometimes you just get pushed wide, but if anybody had problems yesterday, it was Steffi Harm, the driver who is third fastest. Everyone seemed to gang up on her, and as fast as she gained places, she'd be knocked off by those behind and would have to do it all over again. So Norbert Kish made a little pit stop back out onto the track, and also Adam Lachko doing exactly what they need to do. 88, Ryan Smith, he's in the top 10 at the moment. 17, Shane Brereton, how good is that lap? Well, he backed off. They did a quick lap, a slow lap, but he is sitting in 5th place at the moment. Antonio Albacete is the driver who is outside the cut, was outside the cut. Number 11 has just gone past him, which is Eduardo Rodriguez, part of a father and son team with his son Jose. There's Jochen Hahn, the reigning champion, 4-time champion, cruising his Iveco into the pit. So into the final minute, and Antonio Albacete in 23, chased by the similar man of 17, Shane Brereton, trying to pick their way up the order, because in fact 23 Albacete is outside the top 10, won't want to be there. Brereton happily in it, from his point of view, in 5th place overall. So the checkered flag will come out in just about half a minute from now. So these drivers will be able to complete this lap. There'll be one more lap for Dominic Orsini, number 19. Thus far to set a flying lap, but here it comes. So he went out late, the French racer, but way off the pace there. His best lap, 2 minutes 58 seconds. The fastest lap, Norbert Kish so far, 2 minutes 17.4. Orsini did seem to be having some problems yesterday. In fact, he's just, sorry, that lap, he vaulted up the table. Apologies to the French racer, 2 minutes 27.9. So he's 10 and a bit seconds off the pace, just outside the top 10, 11th place. Ryan Smith left it late. He's not in the top 10 yet. He's in 12th place, and he was one of the most dynamic drivers in the race, but certainly got quite a few points of contact, and in fact will be carrying a 3-place grid penalty today. The checker flag is out. He's got to do it on this lap to get in the top 10. So Shane Smith in 88 will be put towards the back of the grid, but we've already seen him charging up from the rear of the grid in the first race yesterday. 15 still in the top 10. as we get to the dying minutes 15 is Erwin Klein-Nagelfort. Who's on the cusp? Dominic Orsini is now in 10th place overall. Antonio Albacete in 23. Down in 14th. Is this final lap good enough to get him in the top 10 shootout? It looks a pretty handy lap, certainly his best lap so far. 23 Albacete up to 6th place, immediately back to 7th because Shane Brereton went slightly faster. Brereton up into 5th. And 15 there, Klein-Nagelfort for now is in the top 10. He's just moved up to 10th place overall, looking to see who is still to finish. I think that's the lot of them. No, there's a Rodriguez coming around the final corner. 14, it's Sun, it's Jose Rodriguez. He's down in last place, 15th. 15th becomes 9th, so he goes into the top 10. And Ryan Smith, he's not in the top 10, he's in 14th. This looks like a very good lap indeed. How high will it put him? 5th place. So that was, I think, no, here comes 42, Andre Kursim, he's in 10th, he's on the cusp. Doesn't look like a particularly quick lap. But will he stay in 10th place? Because I think we've pretty much had the lot of them. Maybe 19, Dominic Orsini has still got to complete his run. Here comes Orsini, he's moved up to 11th, he's fallen back to 14th, and this lap is his best so far, but he needs to find about 4, 5, 6 seconds. Can't see it coming as he comes out of the final corner. He's down to 15th and last position. And he stays there. So it's Kistrom Hahn, Steffi Harm in 3rd. 4th place is 55, Adam Lachko. 5th place is the driver you're looking at there, Shane Brereton, who's really making quite a splash on the FIA European Truck Racing Championship scene. Behind him, Sasha Lentz in 6th, Antonio Albacete in 7th, Ryan Smith with that late charge to 8th place, David Vasecki in the other Freightliner in 9th, and Jose Rodriguez ended up against the barriers at the side of the race yesterday, the second race. He's squeaked his way in 10th place, just ahead of Gerd Korber by a mere thousandths of a second. So late charge there from 23. Antonio Albacete got the job done, as did the driver who was right behind him on the track, Shane Brereton. So there are the top 10 qualifiers. They've got to do it all over again to see who's going to take pole position for the first of today's 2 races in the FIA European Truck Racing Championship. Advantage to Norbert Kiss by over half a second, so the local crowd will be very, very happy indeed. In whichever window I look out of my commentary position, I can see fans coming into the circuit. Truck racing is huge in this part of Central Europe. Now you can see Gerd Korber was the driver who just missed out on getting into that top 10 shootout. And a driver who didn't start at all was Frankie, a Czech racer, who likes to be called Frankie rather than me murdering his name, František Vojtěšek. There's a very poor attempt. He races for the Czech truck racing team, and already the grandstand's starting to fill up. And I can say yesterday, with the track temperature at 55 degrees and the air temperature at 36 degrees, the shade over the spectators in the main grandstand was very welcome indeed. A light breeze as well kept them as cool as possible. So there's Dominic Orsini. I'm afraid he will have no further part in this. He's just got to cruise his way back to the paddock and have a little think about life before we go to the first of today's 2 truck races, which will kick off at 5 minutes past 1, half-an-hour race, and the second race will start at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So Superpole first, of course, 10 minutes coming up, so the 5 drivers who have not made the top 10 will report back to the paddock, and the rest of them will be gathering their thoughts, getting ready to go out. Will it be 2 Superpole victories for Norbert Kies, the local hero, or will he be toppled by one of those others tucked in behind? But with an advantage of half a second and a little bit more, no wonder the flags are out there for, that should say Norby, if it's unfolded. He really is a huge draw here in Hungary, and the paddock absolutely rammed with truck displays. Big business here, and I must say I was very, very impressed with the racing. Some of it slightly robust yesterday, but never less than spectacular. So is it going to be 2 poles in 2 days for Norbert Kies? Gerd Korber going back in, and behind him Andre Kursim. Very short break. It takes a while for these trucks to get wound up around their laps, but they have to get under the 2 minutes 20 to be in the mix. Just about 40 seconds or thereabouts off, well, the quickest one's 35 seconds a lap down on a very good GT3 pace around here, but so powerful, and their grunt out of the corners absolutely phenomenal. So the day is getting brighter and brighter here at the Hungaroring for the FIA European Truck Racing Championship. 2 races today, but before that, of course, we have Superpole. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Norbert Kies? Will it be? Well, he's not his arch enemy. He's the championship leader, Adam Lachko. But I would say when they've been out on the track together, Kies does seem to have the advantage on home ground. Just seems to have that little bit more speed that he can play with in his Team Tankpool 24 Racing Mercedes. But majority of the trucks are MANs, a few Mercedes, a smattering of Freightliners, an Iveco or 2. At other points in the championships we've had the odd Scania and Renault as well, Team VTR, the Portuguese team. They brought their Renaults out at the Nürburgring. But we have 16 trucks here today, and certainly more than 16 fans, I can guarantee you that. So the top 10 going out in the order in which they finished that first session. So Norbert Kies will be the driver who has the advantage. There he is in number 24, going around turn 1, the little kink they have to negotiate on the run down to turn 2. You can see him wiggling around just that little bit, get that heat back into the tyres. Of course, with 5.3 ton curb weight, there's a lot of energy being put down through the rubber. Jochen Hahn running around in second place. I must say Jochen was super consistent, as you'd expect of a multiple truck racing champion, through everything he did. Steffi Hahn got in the wars a little bit yesterday, but really just through sheer bad luck. She forced her way up to 3rd place in the second race. That was good, and from there on, if there was an incident, she seemed to be on the outside, getting out of the way of other people's incidents, and kept on losing ground, kept on fighting her way back. So she really deserves, the sheer effort, a much better result today. Championship leader Adam Lachko, and behind him Shane Brereton, number 17. Who's really gone very, very well indeed in his self-run MAN truck. That's turn 4, turning into turn 5. Turn 4, a really quick, tricky corner. Not a very clear entry for the drivers, but if you're in a truck, you're sitting up so much higher, so you can see a lot more than those sitting low in racing cars. When you come up the crest of the hill there, you have to flick the cars to the left, then get them into position for turn 5. So as the trucks start to wind themselves up towards speed, they're all keeping it quite gentle at this point. They know there's a certain amount of life in these tyres that ought to be good for some distance, but their sweet spot is only for a couple of laps, I would suggest. Their sweet spot for qualifying. There's Antonio Albacete, right behind him David Vasecki. David, the European Truck Racing Champion in 2008, 2009, does his racing now in China. So it just shows the international appeal of truck racing. And I'll give you a little rundown on the points at the moment, because it's 25 points for a win, and Adam Lachko now has a lead over Jochen Hahn of, do the maths, 43 points, and Hahn and Kies are exactly equal on 159 points each. Steffi Hahn on 151, Albacete on 114. So Lachko has a big advantage, but the advantage right now out on the circuit as he starts to wind it up through the final corner is the driver at the front of the queue. He was fastest in the time practice, therefore he's going first in the Superpole. And it's Norbert Kies. The klaxons are going as he roars past the main grandstand. Gosh, the crowd really, really getting into it. Honking, clapping, screaming. Norbert Kies, just the start-finish straight, starts to dip down towards turn 1. And who, of course, will be sitting very high in the cockpit as he gets down to turn 1. Heavy braking. You can see the tails of the truck do want to start wagging. It's about keeping those under control through the double apex turn 1. Then you've got the little kink as Kies goes just wide over the curves, but all very, very tidy and smooth. These trucks can get sideways, but the key is not to let them do so unless it's in the heat of racing. If you're trying to go for a quick lap, keep it smooth. Very tidy line through turn 2. A lot of drivers run wide out of turn 2, then can't get it back across the track before turn 3, down to the lowest point on the circuit, and now the track starts to rear up, and up the hill comes Norbert Kies to turn 4. Wonderful low camera angle then, and we'll follow him round over the curbs. He is so controlled. This is a really smooth lap. A lot of the trucks were going out over the curbs there yesterday. A lot of the cars yesterday in the car racing were doing just that. But Norbert Kies is a driver who clearly knows this circuit well, clearly loves this circuit, and pressing on very hard indeed. He knows this from racing. He was a national Renault Clio champion, a national Seat Leon Cup champion, and a national Suzuki Swift champion. So he's used to driving small cars around the Hungaroring, but now it's big trucks that are the bread and butter of Norbert Kies' career. Pink on the screen means Adam Lachko was fastest through the first sector. Pink on the screen last time around on the warm-up in the second sector was Ryan Smith. but we're waiting to see who's going to set the fastest overall lap. Adam Lachko still best through that first sector of the top 10. Yep, he claims the prize in sector 1. Who's going to be fastest? Well, so far, fastest through sector 2 is Norbert Kies, but he's the only one to have completed sector 2. Now the next 2 trucks have as well, and he's still the fastest through sector 2. Norbert Kies, 5 minutes until the checkered flag will fall. He's going to be going all out through turn 13, trying to keep it neat and tidy, because then you've got the climb up the hill to long turn 14. This final corner, puff of brake smoke there. Through the final corner, and I must say, such a smooth driver, Norbert Kies, out on his own at the front, but will he be out on his own in terms of time on the clock? Time on the clock, 2 minutes 17.508 seconds. Is that going to be challenged? Not by Steffi Harm. She goes second. She's almost almost 7 tenths down. Jochen Hahn only third fastest at the moment. Adam Lachko goes into second. He's 6.649 of a second in arrears. So that lap by Kies, particularly the second 2 sectors where he was fastest of all, looking very strong indeed. Shane Brereton into 5th and Sasha Lentz into 6th. Albacete getting the tail swinging around on his man truck through the final corner. That might not have been the best exit, but it's good enough to move him ahead of Brereton into 5th place in this Superpole shootout. Here comes Ryan Smith. It's Dayglow. Even if that wasn't Dayglow, the way it's driven in the races, it would stand out. So the man with most of its nose work, that was back into some form of shape last night. He goes up into 7th place. So it's, as you can see from the graphic, it's Kiss, Lachko, Halm, Hahn, Albacete. They are the top 5. But importantly for the local fans, Norbert Kies, there he goes up into turn 4, 0.649 of a second clear. This was the case yesterday. He was 8/10 of a second clear of the next 3, who were covered by literally thousandths of a second. So for 2 days running, it's looking very good indeed for Kies on home ground here at the Hungaroring. The sun is shining, it's still relatively cool, the humidity not as high as it was this time yesterday morning. 10:15 here, just outside Budapest in the rolling hills. And what we're getting is the drivers are backing off. Some will go for a second flying lap, but they've overheated their tyres and brakes in that one run, but so smooth. That was the key to the pace of Norbert Kies in his team Tank Pool Racing Mercedes. Of course, this is a cooler lap, then they pick it up again for another hot lap. This is what we saw yesterday, and certainly Norbert Kies, well, he'll go for one more hot lap, I am sure, but sitting on an advantage like that, that is a big mountain for Adam Lachko in 55, Steffi Harm et al. to try and claw him back. But they're trying to cool everything right down now, keep themselves calm, focus on what comes up ahead of them. But right now, Norbert Kies running at the front of the bunch. He can do everything the way he wants to do it. Just approaching turn 12 now. Adam Lachko just out of turn 11 now, coming down the hill. In fact, they're getting really quite close to each other. Norbert Kies has controlled the pace. Jochen Hahn's dropped back a little bit in number 1. He's through turn 12 as the pace setter Norbert Kies is halfway between 13 and 14. So a bit of a gap, and then 44, Steffi Harm right under Jochen Hahn's tail. But they're very close on pace, so that doesn't really matter too much. Maybe Steffi Harm wants to be that close to try and get a bit of a toe down the start-finish straight. So fast lap, slow lap, and now starting to wind it up out of turn 14. Here goes Norbert Kies on his second charge to see if he can get below 2 minutes 17.508 seconds, accelerating really hard in the silver and red Mercedes truck. The cries, the encouragement from the fans in the grandstand. They're waving the flags. Down on the slope towards turn 1 he goes. He was fastest, don't forget, in the second and third sectors on what is the provisional pole lap, and his arch rival and championship leader Adam Lachko, who's second fastest. He was fastest in that first sector. So again, trying to keep it neat, keep it tidy. Norbert Kies down through turn 2, slightly wider turn than he made at his first flying lap. Jochen Hahn, Steffi Harm has dropped back a little bit off Jochen Hahn to give herself the space in the 44, the blue 44 truck. And Sasha Lentz running 4th in that queue in the number 30 truck. Behind him, Shane Brereton. Jochen Hahn improves his first sector time, Norbert Kies does not, but the advantage for Kies seems to be in the second and third sectors. Steffi Harm in 44, she has improved on that first sector time. as has Shane Brereton, but not Norbert Kies. But don't forget, he's 0.649 of a second better than all those behind on that first flying lap, and that is a big, big challenge for Adam Lachko et al. Waiting for Adam's time to come in. He hung right back. He is only just now completing his first sector on the approach to turn 4. There he is, beautifully picked up, and yeah, no, it's not his best, but it's right in the ballpark, because he was the best through that first sector. In fact, he's still quicker than all of the others on this lap through that first sector, but just not as good as his first flying lap at that point in the circuit. Norbert Kies, there or thereabouts. He's about a tenth and a little bit more down on his best first sector time, but still better than all of those who are giving chase. Out over the curb. Gosh, look how much dust is out there in the curbing as Adam Lachko takes a wide line. That was through turn 8. He's now in turn 9. And here down to the final corner. It doesn't look as though there's going to be improvement. It looks as though Kiss's mark of 2 minutes 17.508 seconds is going to be untrammeled. How close is he? I think he'd be under 2 minutes 18. Let's just have a look. Can he manage that? Oh, well, he's gone faster by 5/1000. So that was a case of a slightly better first sector than he'd done before. No, there or thereabouts. I think he just joined the lap together rather better. So he shaved off 5/1000. So his advantage now out to 0.654 of a second. Adam Lachko is the one who's going to be able to try and challenge it. He'll be the next one through, because 4 other trucks, Jochen Hahn, Steffi Harm, Sascha Lentz and Shane Brereton, have not improved enough to go past him. Through the final corner now, out of the final corner, past the very patriotic green, white and red Hungarian national colours on the curbing at turn 14. Here comes Adam Lachko. Surely he'll improve. Yes, he does improve, but he brings the gap down to 0.322 of a second. He hasn't toppled Kies, just waiting for the final few trucks to come through. Albacete unlikely to do a great deal better. No, he doesn't. He stays in 5th place overall. 2 more trucks to come. Here's one of them, Ryan Smith. But he's the last truck, because Jose Rodriguez has just crossed the start-finish line, and looks like no improvement from Ryan Smith, because he's yeah, his middle sector was really not very quick at all. So as you can see, he's not exactly accelerating out of the final corner, but his time from his first flying lap still good for 8th position. So there we have our grid for race 3. It will be Kiss at the front, from Lachko, from Hahn. I wish these two would be separated by more drivers. Albacete, Lentz, Brereton, Smith, 2 British drivers together on row 4. And Jose Rodriguez and David Versecki, they are the top 10. So 2 days, 2 poles for Norbert Kies, 1 win yesterday and 1 massive disappointment. Can he make it 2 wins today? His win yesterday was actually his 54th at this level at the European Truck Racing Championship. So if he can go home with 56, there will be some very, very happy people in the grandstands. So an advantage of 0.322 of a second, half of what it was after the first flying lap. So Lachko did show really quite a lot of improvement, where there we have it, 0.322, and then the rest stayed the same distance behind pretty much. They were 6/10, 7/10 behind. Steffi Harm in a 2nd place. But really the story this morning is Norbert Kies. He did it yesterday. He took pole by a big margin. Not such a big margin today, and his arch rival and championship leader Adam Lachko has got onto that all-important front row. But and Hahn and Harm refused to be separated, so close to each other on the grid together yesterday, and same today. Sascha Lentz did a good job there to get ahead of Brereton to take 6th place, but really the story is simply about the driver of the 24 Mercedes. Norbert Kies has it under control for now, but you can be sure Adam Lachko has got some other thoughts in his mind. And the rest of the trucks just now reporting back to the paddock. But the driver who was disappointing probably in that session, the most disappointed, was down in 8th place overall. Ryan Smith, we saw great speed from him and some feisty battling, but he has ended up down in 8th place. So Norbert Kies went out super quick. He was the first one on the track because he was fastest in the time practice. He could dictate where he put his truck. The rest all managed to string out. They didn't interrupt each other, but it was the smooth application of everything, of throttle, of brakes, of balance, that made Norbert Kies the fastest driver for the 2nd day running. And the trucks had to make their space, had to keep it neat, had to keep it tidy. But it was the Team Tank Pool Racing Mercedes for the 2nd day running, with Norbert Kies on pole position for the 2nd time in 2 days. So the flags will be waving in the grandstands. Looking forward very much for the 2 races today for the European Truck Racing Championship.